Tonight, Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra musicians, violinist Chris Anstey, violist Greg Hay, percussionist Mike Kemp, and double bassist Meredith Johnson will be performing at 969 Kildonan Drive, right by Fraser's Grove Park. However, if you are expecting Mozart, Haydn, or Beethoven, you will be in for a surprise. These four WSO musicians also make up the bluegrass group, the neWSOunds, and it is the sounds of Appalachia that will be on the menu for tonight. Joining me here over Zoom to chat about tonight's show is the neWSOunds banjo, guitar, mandolin, and violist, Greg Hay. Hey, Greg, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
Great to see you again. It's been a while.
When you say people will be surprised, I would like to think that it's a pleasant surprise.
Yes, of course. I'm gonna start the conversation out with asking you the same question that I asked Elise Lavallee when I was chatting with her a couple of weeks ago. What have you been doing over the summer? I know festivals are not really a thing, and the symphony hasn't been performing. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy over the summer?
That's a good question. There's been a lot of golf on the menu. But I have to say, one of the fun things for me, sort of over the course of the entire pandemic, is I've kind of used it as an opportunity to explore and practice some of my sort of secondary instruments. So I've been taking a lot of online lessons and just working up. Most recently, it's been my mandolin playing. So I've been kind of getting my mandolin chops going. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was doing a lot of dobro, trying to do a little bit of flat picking on guitar. So yeah, I have to confess, my viola has taken is playing second fiddle, so to speak, to some of the other instruments. But it's all good. I'm sure it'll all come back very quickly.
Nice. So you've got this band, the neWSOunds. I want to start with the question: how did you four start the band? How did this work?
Yeah, so this came out of the WSO outreach program. Throughout the year, the WSO splits up into smaller groups, and we go out into the community and play concerts for people, either like through the school division. We'll go into schools. There's a group that goes into the hospital. And I used to play in a group that would go into daycares as well. And and we were approached. Somebody sort of knew that there were a number of us in the orchestra that had some experience playing in some bands and doing music other than classical music. And they thought that maybe this would be a great opportunity to sort of explore some other avenues. And I approached some of my colleagues, and we ended up with what is now the neWSOunds.
And apparently, am I right in understanding that the neWSOunds is a new name for the group? Is that right? What was it called before, and why did
we struggled a lot with coming up with a name. The working title that we had for the longest time, we were called the WSO band, but I preferred the shortened version, which was just the WSOBs. But I don't know, for some reason it didn't really take off, so we had to reinvent ourselves, and we went with the neWSOunds. It seemed sort of like an appropriate name for our band, and maybe less controversial.
Mm-hmm. Can you maybe briefly touch on the four members of the group and their experience behind bluegrass? I guess I'm going to start with you. Have you always been a fan of bluegrass and traditional music?
No, quite the contrary. When I was a student back in our days of Brandon University, I hated anything that sounded remotely country. It's funny. It wasn't until I moved away from Manitoba, and at that point I suddenly rediscovered my country roots, and I just kind of fell in love with with the music, and also, you know, a lot of it for me was I really enjoyed the process of learning instruments. You know, learning how to play a new instrument. So it started with a mandolin, and then later one of my colleagues lent me his banjo, and I tried that for a while, and then I bought a dobro, and just kind of all spiraled out of control from there. So yeah, so that's sort of my background. These are mostly sort of secondary instruments that I've kind of learned over the last dozen years. Chris Anstey is our fiddle player, and he's from Newfoundland originally. So it kind of goes without saying that fiddling is it's in his DNA.
DNA, yeah, right.
You know, when he plays fiddle music, and you compare it to somebody like a classical player, it's completely different language. You know, the way that he feels it, you know, like it has this sort of swing to it that he does it so well. Yeah, so we were really fortunate to have somebody in our orchestra that does fiddling. Bluegrass is not really his necessarily his language, and it's not really any of our language. You know, I think we're calling it bluegrass or Appalachian music, but you know, we kind of have really sort of put our own take on the music, and yeah, so that's Chris. Meredith Johnson is our bass player, and he's from Alabama originally, and he's played in some bands. You know, one of the bands that he plays in is called the Bashful Mountain Broadcasters. And yeah, very raw Appalachian sort of type music, and yeah, it's especially nice having, you know, like a classical bassist in our band, because you know, he's able to do so much more. You know, he can treat the instrument like a cello if we need to. Right. He's got some extended techniques and things that he's able to do. So it really offers us a very sort of wide palette in what we're able to do. And then the last member of our band is Mike Kemp. Mike is our timpanist in the WSO, and is also very versatile percussionist. And he grew up playing in all sorts of bands as well. And yeah, it's kind of the same thing with with Meredith, in that you know, as a orchestral percussionist, you know, he's able to do a lot of things that maybe your sort of typical drummer wouldn't necessarily be able to do. We have him playing vibraphone on some of our tunes. You know, he's playing kit or spoons, cajon. So it's yeah, we're between all the instruments that we play, we're able to really get a fairly wide variety of sound.
Mm-hmm. The concert is tonight. I guess my first question is, what time does it start, and what can audiences expect the show tonight?
Well, yeah, it starts at 6:30. And yeah, as I say, we have a wide variety of stuff. We're going to do a little bit of three-part harmonizing with our singing. You'll hear some banjo. You'll hear some more sort of classical sort of type trio things, still sort of within the Appalachian sort of spirit. And yeah, I think our plan is we have another show that we're sort of gearing up for with the orchestra in a few weeks. So we're kind of taking as many opportunities as we can just to sort of get out and play. We've got some new repertoire we've been working on, and we want to get in front of an audience. So some of it's still a work in progress, and we're hoping to sort of clean it up over the next. So it's quite possibly you may hear the odd wrong note, but it's all part of the fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sort of leads to my next question. The show with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra is happening on the 18th and 19th with the neWSOunds band. So I was going to ask, you know, is this going to be a sort of a dry run for that September 18th, 19th?
Yeah, so, absolutely. That's exactly it. You know, some of the arrangements are still fairly new, and yeah, I think even tonight we're still getting together and yeah, just kind of working things out in front of in front of a live audience. So absolutely, it's a dry run, and yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's gonna be fun.
For myself, when I'm thinking of the three sort of string instruments, and here I'm going to your viola and then Chris on violin and Meredith on double bass, it actually reminds me, there's that album that Edgar Meyer and Yo-Yo Appalachian Journey. Are you
Absolutely, yeah.
that? Yeah. So it's sort of that, but then there's also just some straight ahead bluegrass and folk and fiddle medleys as well, right?
Yeah, Edgar Meyer actually was the teacher for Meredith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of influences, I think, in Edgar's in Meredith's playing coming from Edgar.
Mm-hmm. So one more time, the concert is tonight at 6:30 at 969 Kildonan Drive. How much is it, Greg, to see it?
As far as I know, I'm not the one putting on the concert, but as far as I know, I think they're just taking an offering. I think it's what you pay what you can, and every little bit helps to sort of keep these concerts up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of pass the hat.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Greg, this has just been great. It's been so nice to see you and catch up and
Yeah, you too,
reconnect.
Chris.
It sounds like the show tonight is going to be a blast. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
It's a pleasure, and hope to see people out tomorrow or tonight, I
Mhm.
guess.
Absolutely. Thanks again.